The British people have voted to leave the European Union, and their will must be respected. I want to thank everyone who took part in the campaign on my side of the argument, including all those who put aside party differences to speak in what they believed was the national interest. And let me congratulate all those who took part in the Leave campaign for the spirited and passionate case that they made. The will of the British people is an instruction that must be delivered. It was not a decision that was taken lightly, not least because so many things were said by so many different organisations about the significance of this decision. So there can be no doubt about the result.
So they want David Cameron to pause. They've asked for calm and they've asked for some calm, yeah.
Let's just listen to Nigel Farage speaking outside the House of Commons.
And just look at it. Even the weather's improved. It's been a hell of a long journey, this. I first got involved in Eurosceptic politics 25 years ago, and the first election I contested, I managed to beat the late, great screaming Lord Such by 164 votes, so I didn't come last. And now there are 17 million people that voted for Brexit. It's a victory for ordinary people, decent people. It's a victory against the big merchant banks, against the big businesses, and against big politics. And I'm proud of everybody that had the courage, in the face of all the threats, everything they were told, they had the guts to stand up and do the right thing. The election was won, in my view, in the Midlands and the North, and I think it was the old Labour vote that came to us, and we, particularly as a party, campaigned as hard as we could in those areas. There is still a massive disconnect between Westminster, SW1 and real communities. And the one image I will remember throughout the rest of my life was a woman in Bolton grabbing my hands with tears in her eyes saying, why doesn't David Cameron, why doesn't the government come and see what they've done to my community, what they've done to the prospects for my kids? People here don't understand. They're too wealthy. They don't get what open door mass immigration as a result of EU membership has done to people's wages, to people's availability of getting GP appointments or their kids into local schools. This was the issue ultimately that won this election. So I'm thrilled that we've done this. I believe the other big effect of this election is not what's happened in Britain, but what will happen in the rest of Europe. I mean, in the rest of the EU, Eurosceptic parties never talked about leaving the EU, now they are. An opinion poll in the Netherlands said that a majority there now want to leave. So we may well be close, perhaps, to Nexit. And similarly in Denmark, a majority there are in favour of leaving, so we could be quite close to Dexit. And I'm told the same may apply to Sweden and perhaps Austria and perhaps even Italy too. The EU's failing, the EU's dying. I hope we've knocked the first brick out of the wall. I hope this is the first step towards a Europe of sovereign nation states, trading together, neighbours together, friends together, but without flags, anthems, or useless old unelected presidents. So what happens now? What happens next? Well, 17 million people have said we must leave the European Union. We now need a Brexit government. A government that gets on with the job. A government that begins the renegotiation of our trade relationship. A government that will be mindful that already many of the German car manufacturing unions have said, let's get on and do a deal. Let's go on buying, selling motor cars and wine and cheese with each other. But a government also that at the same time uses the opportunity of Brexit. And the opportunity is we're now freed to start making our own trade deals and associations with the rest of the world. We've left behind, with this result, we've left behind a failing political union. We've given ourselves the chance to rejoin the world in a 21st century global economy. So we need, as I say, a Brexit government. We need the negotiations to start as soon as humanly possible. We need to start thinking globally about our future. And the other thing I think that needs to happen is that June the 23rd needs to become a national bank holiday, and we will call it Independence Day.
And welcome to this week's podcast of the Ed Boston Podcast. It's an Ed and Amy night for you. Welcome to the show, folks. You got Ed.
And Amy.
And we are glad to be here. Boy, what an inspirational speech that was by Nigel Farage. Said a lot of things in there that we're going to get into as the show goes on. We got another clip of him to play as well. It sounded like 1776 a little bit, Independence Day. And if you know me, you know I'm a U.S. history buff. I love U.S. history. As a matter of fact, you should go and listen to my sermon from this past Sunday. I believe the title is I Am Not Ashamed of the Gospel. And in it, I take out of my Founder's Bible that is produced by David Barton's group, Wall Builders, that I have, quotes of many of the Founding Fathers talking about their belief in Jesus Christ. And all of that kind of intertwines in my mind. Britain gained their independence from the EU. How ironic that they even had to do that. That they would have given up their sovereignty to begin with. Sometimes I'm a little bit speechless at where things have gotten in the world. But I also am hopeful after seeing what happened in the last week, actually less than a week, of what can happen in the world, and people can make good decisions, and as Nigel said in the speech, and to do the right thing, and they did. How's Amy tonight?
Amy's good.
Amy's good?
Amy's good.
Well, it's been, I was going to say, an uneventful few days, but
For whom?
But seeing as how you had 2 outpatient surgeries done in preparation for that, it's not been uneventful for you, has it?
Not at all. Not for me. It was pretty easy for you. Trying to keep you awake was the hard part.
Keep me awake?
That's what you do best.
Well, I won't share with all the listeners all of the good little ditties that I had while you were trying to come out from your anesthetic.
That was induced by an anesthetic. What's your excuse? So you have no excuse. Yeah,
I
exactly.
don't. I don't. Except that the week before I was guilty of coming out of the anesthetic-induced sleep, and I think the first thing that I shared with you when I woke up was that when I woke up, Wilma Flintstone was in my face.
Yep, absolutely.
That's a long story. That nurse had glasses on that reminded you of the Flintstones, and we commented about that before I went to sleep, and that's who was right there when I woke up. So
I didn't do anything real ridiculously dumb.
Now, how do you know you didn't?
Because I'm sure you would have reinforced it by now, I'm sure.
Well, you're right. You didn't do anything ridiculously dumb.
I don't think I did anything dumb.
I was going to say dumb probably isn't the right word anyway. You did some funny things.
What did I do?
Oh, like asking every minute, when did I get back to the room?
Oh, well.
It was, not funny at first, but...
Then it became annoying?
No, it became funny.
Oh. Then it became annoying.
No, never did. Enjoyed it every single time. Me and the nurse Bambi.
Yeah, Bambi.
Yep, there's actually people named Bambi in this world.
It was kind of sad because somebody shot her mother.
Right here in... Now, see, people might... We're going to talk about a terrorist attack later on, and people might get that confused.
Oh, okay, well. Bambi's mother did get shot.
Oh, you mean the deer Bambi.
Okay. Works for me.
Well, I mentioned my sermon from Sunday. It was one of those fun sermons.
It was an amazing sermon.
It was one that I love to intertwine God bless America into stuff. And God has blessed America. And I don't know. I told you after I was done I could have preached for hours on the topic, and I really believe I could. The only thing is I said there would have been nobody awake when I got done. And so then we were watching Andy Griffith just a few minutes ago, and there was a long-winded preacher on the episode, and Gomer and Barney and Andy, all three were having a hard time staying awake. Gomer, he snored out loud.
He sure did.
Boy, that's a tough one. I'd have probably said, "Excuse me, sir, you're going to fall over."
You probably would have embarrassed the poor guy to death.
I'd have probably walked out from the pulpit, down the aisle, and tapped him on his shoulder.
Lord help my father if he ever falls asleep.
Oh, he...
I'm sure he has.
I'm nice to him because he's your father.
Well, gee, that's nice of you, honey.
And I like him.
You like me?
I like your father.
Oh, you like my father?
Uh-huh.
I'm glad you do.
I like you too, but...
Gee, that's nice of you.
I've told this story before, but I didn't give my father that own courtesy one time when he fell asleep when I was preaching. I woke up, Mr. Boston. Well, let's get right back into the BREXIT vote. A lot of things happened Thursday night, our time Thursday night, and Nigel, who we listened to earlier, actually came out and conceded defeat because it looked as if that was what was going to happen. Now, I'm sure in the annals of history that there's been times where a politician has conceded defeat and then had to come back and take it back. But usually it's the other way around, that people don't concede when it's obvious they're going to lose. But that's part of the whole amazing course of events. He came out, thanked his followers, and you got to understand, this is a man that has given 25 years to this cause of exiting the European Union. Now, people might want to know, what is the big deal about England and exiting the European Union? Well, there's a couple things that you can look at, and one of them in our lifetime is, many of us remember when the Soviet Union crumbled. The Soviet Union was a mixture of several different countries that Russia basically brought in to be a part of the USSR. And, of course, it was an extremely evil union, as it was a communist union. And we seen when it started to crumble, it crumbled fast. The countries became sovereign in their own nations once again, and so it makes one wonder. You heard Nigel talking about different countries in the European Union that have already expressed their desire to be sovereign again and to have their exit from the European Union. There's even been talk of Texas having a referendum and seeing about leaving the United States of America. I look at the United States a little bit differently than I look at the European Union. The United States is 50 different states in one country. Most countries have different areas. They may not call them states. They may call them regions. They may have their own word for it, whatever. Such as when I lived in Germany, I lived in Bavaria. That is an area of Germany, a portion of Germany, Bavaria. Actually, I lived in Bavaria in West Germany at the time because Germany was separated into two, East and West Germany at the time. And I see why people might say that the United States and the European Union has similarities, but we're talking about one country. The European Union's talking about, I think it was 31 countries that were part. I could be wrong on that. Don't tell anybody if I am. But that's 31 countries that had their own languages. Can you imagine living in a country or living in under a government where they have to have headsets with translators in their ears because they speak different languages? I mean, can you imagine Washington, D.C.? It's bad enough that they all speak the same language there sometimes, but in a video that I took audio from, Nigel's talking to the European Union, and you can see him. It's like being at the United Nations, where everybody has, not everybody, the people that don't speak the language being spoken by the person who has the floor, has to listen to a translator, and that's the way the European Union was. The leader of the European Union was not elected by people. It was appointed by the countries. So can you imagine living in the United States and not having an elected president, but having one that the states got together and they appointed somebody to be leader? Who is he responsible to? Not we the people, because we the people wouldn't have had anything to do with putting him in office. And so there's lots and lots of reasons why this is important. So I mentioned the crumbling of the Soviet Union. I firmly believe that we're going to see at least a partial crumbling of the European Union, and depending upon which way the crumbs fall, so to speak, meaning which countries are involved and how much damage that does to the European Union's ability to govern could see the entire union crumble. I don't think it's ever a good idea to have government that is not elected by the people. Does that just seem like a bad idea, appointing people to govern?
Sounds like a bad idea to me.
Because accountability is a big thing. I mean, we complain enough here in America where we do elect our officials that they go to Washington, D.C., they become different. They sell out. They become, well, under the power of special interests and people who
pad their pockets.
Well, that's a polite way of saying it.
Don't ever accuse me of not being polite.
So politicians have that temptation, that's the word I wanted, temptation, there. Of course, the Bible talks about temptation and that we have God, His Son, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Spirit to assist us through the temptations that we have in this life. So I'm not going to ease up on the politicians because they have the same ability to withstand that temptation as well. The other part of the UK leaving is the will of the people and the it's such a big thing that the will of the people was heard. That's what we're clamoring for here in the United States. The will of the people. We vote, we send people to D.C., we send them there because they campaign on a certain issue or a certain group of values, and then we send them to D.C. and it doesn't seem to make any difference.
That's for sure.
You know, this person is, if they're from one side, they're going to be pro-life, they're going to be pro-Second Amendment, they're going to be fiscal conservatives, they're going to be whatever. You know, every politician that has ever went anywhere has promised that they were going to create jobs. You know, I don't know how politicians create jobs, but they're going to. You know, the policies they make may have an effect, but it's the policies that are created, how they're implemented, and whether they create jobs or they don't create jobs or actually lose jobs. But the point is, we the people want what we want. And you take the gun control. The gun control issue. You know what tells me that the majority of the people are against gun control? There's one thing that tells me that the majority of the people are.
What's that?
The number of people that own guns.
There you go. I had somebody try to prove a point to me the other day that because I had said something about Obama trying to control guns, and they said, well, more guns have been sold since Obama's been president than any time ever. Well, duh. It's because we got to protect ourselves because he's not allowing anybody to protect us.
That's exactly right. So that issue, you know, they had their own issues in the UK. Every country has their own different makeup. immigration was a huge. Immigration is what won the Brexit vote. You know, they can say whatever they want, but being part of the European Union, they basically had open borders, and Muslims have flooded Europe. It's to the point where London now has a Muslim mayor. That Sharia law is prevalent in many places, even though there is no constitution, so to speak, allowing that. And so there are their issues, we have ours. But the people, and it's not just an American thing, obviously, because you look at Brexit, but people in general are tired of government telling them how to run their lives. You know, when he was making the list of different things that were reasons to leave, you know, people wanting smaller government. Have you ever heard, well, I can't say that, because there are people that want bigger government because they want to get things from government. I don't think I've ever heard somebody that I knew and respected say, we'd be better off with a bigger government. It just, government plans, government programs, history shows us, are doomed to fail. Government programs are that way. And the European Union, they had all kinds of rules and regulations and things that, like, one big blanket fit everyone.
Right.
And that's not the way it is. Even in the United States, some states have different laws. Not some, but it's feasible that every state could have a different law on a certain topic. We have local laws that are superseded by state laws, that are superseded by federal laws. Too many federal laws throw a blanket on things. You know, Indiana is different than Oregon. California is different than Maine. Florida is different than Washington State. And throwing a big blanket over the entire country is not a good thing. So most people who believe in smaller government believe in stronger state governments. I think you break that down even further, and even in localities such as school districts. The people of our community may want to have certain things involved in their school corporation that somebody in northern Indiana has no desire, and vice versa. There's no reason we have to be clones of all 92 counties in this state. And so it's important to look at local government, because that's where the most things affect us on a local level. You know, if the city council decides that they're going to spend a whole bunch of money, they have the right to tax us to do that. It's part of the power that they have. Same with the state, same with the federal government, and every other agency that has taxing powers. Well, we need to do something about that. Too many people have the ability to tax. But we can look at Europe, and we can look at the UK and Brexit, and realize that we have the ability to do what they did. You know, I know Trevor watched a lot of Sky News from the UK the night that everything was breaking down. As a matter of fact, when I went to bed that night, Nigel had come out and had said it didn't look good. He thought that they were going to come out on the wrong end, but he hadn't given his concession speech yet. Then, but by the time I woke up the following morning, Brexit had won. And Trevor said it was almost like a supernatural experience, and that Sky News was like, they had no idea what to say. Like, we just lost. Everybody thought, well, it's like in sports when you have one team that kills everybody and they get into the playoffs and they lose to a team that just is average. It's like, how do you explain that? It's not, it doesn't seem possible. It didn't seem possible that Brexit was going to win. One of the early areas that got their vote in was an area called Gibraltar. And Gibraltar, I think it was over 90%. I think it was over 95% voted to stay.
Is that as in rock of?
Yes, that's same reference. Now, when you look at that, it obviously wasn't a huge amount of votes, but when you're looking early on and you're seeing that an area come up 95% for staying, I mean, that says a lot. Of course, when you break that down a little bit and realize that of where they're located and some different issues that would make sense why that vote was that way, it's not as, but 95%, I mean, when do you ever get 95% to agree on one subject?
Very slim.
You could go to a mega church, you could go to Joel Osteen's church and put a topic up on the board, and you wouldn't get 95% to agree on anything unless it was something. You couldn't even get 95% of the people to agree to give away something free.
No.
There'd be more people than that would be against something free.
Absolutely.
I mean, trust me, I've been around enough church vote things that, you know what? It reminds me, there will be no church board meetings in heaven.
Thank God.
Yeah, I'm convinced. God wouldn't put up with people on church board.
Absolutely not.
I kicked a guy out of a church board meeting one time. You're going to have to leave. Rest his soul.
Very nice.
He's dead now.
Feel bad?
No. He apologized later.
Well.
He was out of control. Not in my meeting, buddy.
Get him. That's my man. Flex that muscle.
You got to leave.
You got to go.
I invited you here nicely.
You
So,
got to go.
I about beat a guy up in a church board meeting once because he said something that was so out of the way. I'm not proud of that, but he deserved to get his butt stomped.
Wow, honey.
I had a preacher and 2 elders holding me back from going after this guy. And guess what? I've never been in a fight in my life.
So you wait to become a preacher and then you get into
No,
the fight.
I wasn't.
That's awesome, hon.
I wasn't a preacher then. I was just a church elder.
Oh, okay.
So
Never been in a fight in your life?
well, I kind of was in one in 6th grade. You know, it was like a fake fight.
Wow. I can't say that. You married a rebel.
Well, and rebels aren't always a bad thing.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. Thank you. That was awful nice of you.
I have a feeling that this next clip we're going to listen to, that the members of the European Union Parliament, I don't know if that's what they call them or not, their governing body, would consider Nigel Farage a rebel.
I just like his name.
Nigel
Farage. It's just...
Well, let's listen as Nigel addresses... This had to be so awesome for him to be able to do this. This is after the vote, after his side had won, and he goes and he addresses the European Union that he said, let's leave. This had to be so... I mean, can you imagine the feeling he must have had? I mean, it was like...
in your face.
Thumbing your nose.
Exactly.
Right in their face. So, here's Nigel Farage speaking to the European Union governing body.
Funny, isn't it? Thank you very much for that. Very warm welcome. How things have changed.
Just a second, Mr. Farage. Ladies and gentlemen, one major quality of democracy is that you listen to those, even if you don't share their opinion.
Well, thank you, Mr. Schultz. Isn't it funny? You know, when I came here 17 years ago, and I said that I wanted to lead a campaign to get Britain to leave the European Union, you all laughed at me. Well, I have to say, you're not laughing now, are you? And the reason you're so upset, the reason you're so angry, has been perfectly clear from all the angry exchanges this morning. You, as a political project, are in denial. You're in denial that your currency is failing. You're in denial. Well, just look at the Mediterranean. No. As a policy to impose poverty on Greece and the rest of the Mediterranean, you've done very well. And you're in denial over Mrs. Merkel's call last year for as many people as possible to cross the Mediterranean into the European Union has led to massive divisions between countries and within countries. But the biggest problem you've got, and the main reason the United Kingdom voted the way that it did, is you have, by stealth, by deception, without ever telling the truth to the British or the rest of the peoples of Europe, you have imposed upon them a political union. You've imposed upon them a political union. And when the people in 2005 in the Netherlands and France voted against that political union, when they rejected the Constitution, you simply ignored them and brought the Lisbon Treaty in through the back door. What happened last Thursday was a remarkable result. It was indeed a seismic result, not just for British politics, for European politics, but perhaps even for global politics too, because what the little people did, what the ordinary people did, what the people who have been oppressed over the last few years and seen their living standards go down, they rejected the multinationals, they rejected the merchant banks, they rejected big politics, and they said, actually, we want our country back. We want our fishing waters back. We want our borders back. We want to be an independent, self-governing, normal nation. And that is what we have done, and that is what must happen. And in doing so, we now offer a beacon of hope to Democrats across the rest of the European continent. I'll make one prediction this morning. The United Kingdom will not be the last member state to leave the European Union. So the question is, what do we do next? Now, it is up to the British government to invoke Article 50. And I have to say that I don't think we should spend too long in doing it. I totally agree, Mr. Juncker, that the British people have voted. We need to make sure that it happens. But what I would like to see is a grown-up and sensible attitude to how we negotiate a different relationship. Now I know that virtually none of you have ever done a proper job in your lives or worked in business, or worked in trade, or indeed ever created a job. But listen, just listen.
Herr Farage, Augenblick. Mr. Farage, just a second. Ladies and gentlemen, I do understand that you're getting emotional, but you're acting like UKIP normally acts in this chamber, so please, don't imitate them. Mr. Farage, however, I would say one thing to you. The fact that you're claiming nobody has done a decent job in their life, you can't really say that. I'm sorry.
No, you're quite right, Mr. Schultz. UKIP used to protest against the establishment, and now the establishment protests against UKIP. So something has happened here. Let us listen to some simple, pragmatic economics. Between your countries and my country, we do an enormous amount of business in goods and services. That trade is mutually beneficial to both of us. That trade matters. If you were to decide to cut off your noses, to spite your faces, and to reject any idea of a sensible trade deal, the consequences would be far worse for you than it would be for us. And even no deal is better for the United Kingdom than the current rotten deal that we've got. But if we were to move to a position where tariffs were reintroduced on products like motor cars, then hundreds of thousands of German workers would risk losing their jobs. So why don't we just be pragmatic, sensible, grown up, realistic, and let's cut between us a sensible tariff-free deal, and thereafter recognise that the United Kingdom will be your friend, that we will trade with you, we will cooperate with you, we will be your best friends in the world. But do it sensibly, and allow us to go off and pursue our global ambitions and future. Thank you.
Well, that was an in-your-face...
Yes, it was.
Wow. None of you have had a real job in your entire life. That went over like a lead balloon.
Yeah, but it's probably very true.
And I like the guy who was moderate. I don't know if that was the president of the EU or just whoever was in charge of the meeting that day. Yeah. But Schultz, I'm trying to think if that's the European Union leader's name or not, and I'm not sure. Doesn't matter. His response was hilarious. Sir, you can't actually say that. I'm thinking, well, I think he just did.
You're a little late in stopping him.
I think what he could have more properly said, you don't have proof that none of us have ever had a job. To which I'm sure Nigel would have had a comeback to.
Yeah, he was on it.
You know, I've got to make this correlation. He sounds an awful lot like Donald Trump. The in-your-face, let's quit playing games with government. I mean, he may not be as rusty around the edges as Trump is when Trump calls women bimbos and stuff like that. But he in both countries, the We the People movement seems to be gaining steam. And it was ironic that Donald Trump was in the UK the day after the vote took place, and it was actually not even a political trip. He owns a couple of golf resorts that he bought a few years ago, and he had scheduled to go over and to see his investment and what work had been done and things like that. So he was over there, and I think he and Nigel probably agree about a lot of things. Knowing that my my desire is whatever it takes to keep Hillary out of the White House, short of illegal stuff. Any legal thing possible to keep her out of the White House. Maybe I should trademark that or something. Being that that's the way I am, we the people who want smaller government, who don't want government handouts, people that believe in the Constitution, that don't want a king or a queen in the White House. Those of us that believe that way, that have become disillusioned with government as it is, are just thirsty for somebody to get the message out that we want to hear. Is Donald Trump that guy? I can't say he is. I don't know, but he seems to be on the side of we the people, because he's not a government insider. As far as I know, he's never held a government office a day in his life. And contrary to what I said earlier about politicians creating jobs, we know that he has created jobs, because he goes and buys 2 golf courses in, I think it was Scotland, which is a part of the UK. People have to work at those golf courses. People have to work at doing all the improvements. Thus, he created jobs. There's just one example of thousands. And that's why I think that is a couple of reasons why things are the way they are right now, with the campaigns being so, I don't know, dysfunctional, for what is lack of a better term, why they're so vitriolic, as our friend from England said on the interview last week. Is because you've got the fed up people that are supporting Trump. And then you've got the big government people supporting Hillary or supporting Bernie. You know, Bernie had a lot of, Bernie the socialist, he had lots of supporters, just not enough. Bernie the socialist, promised everybody pretty much a golden spoon in their mouth, but he forgot one thing.
Who's going to pay for it?
Who's going to pay for it? Nobody promised me a golden spoon in my mouth.
Me neither.
And but the big government people are scared to death of somebody like Trump. That's, they don't want no part of somebody that is going to stir up the masses, that make the people believe that they've got a say in things again. That's why the socialists, so many of the young people liked what Bernie had to say. You don't find a lot of socialists that are our age and above, because we know socialism doesn't work. We
have more intelligence than that.
Well, we've seen that socialism doesn't work.
Right, absolutely.
Socialism, communism, all the isms, they don't work. And so they've not seen that. The Soviet Union's been gone a long time now. And so somebody says, well, everybody ought to get a free college education. Okay. Who can argue with that?
Absolutely. That would be a great thing. But it's free for whom? Not for everybody. It's got to come from somewhere.
Let's say this, because most teachers' unions and things like that are very liberal. Does that mean that the teachers have to donate their time?
Fat chance that would ever happen.
Heck no. And not that they should.
No, but...
But there's the point. If they don't donate their time, then who's going to pay for their time? Because everybody deserves a free education.
Everybody deserves to work for what they get.
Oh.
That's
theory
per Amy.
Theory per Amy. Team Amy strikes a blow. Everybody deserves what they work for. Is that what you said?
That's exactly what I said.
And Trevor put an article up at his place, inspired by Brexit, will Texas be next? And Texas has long talked about seceding from the Union. Texas was once its own country, and quote says, the Texas nationalist movement is formally calling on the Texas governor to support a similar vote for Texans, the group said on Friday. The office of Texas Governor Greg Abbott was not immediately available for comment. The group, which claims about 250,000 supporters, failed earlier this year to place a vote on secession on the November ballot, but aims to relaunch its campaign for the next election cycle in 2018, spurred by the British vote. Texit is in the air, he said. Texit, as in for Texas exit, is a play on the British exit or Brexit. and it was trending on Twitter in the United States on Friday. The what? Oh, I thought you had something you were going to instill. The I'm thinking and my mouth ain't moving.
And radio, that's dead air. That's not good.
Where'd you hear that?
I don't know.
You heard it from a wise gentleman, didn't you?
Wise old gentleman.
Oh. Wise old gentleman.
Yep.
Well, Brexit is now in the stage of figuring out how that's all going to work. And I know our guest last week, that was one of the concerns, was if they decided to leave, how is everything going to work? You heard Nigel talking about currency, you heard him talking about trade, heard him talking about immigration. The getting down to the nitty gritty and doing the work now.
Yep.
They came out, they voted. Now it's got to be implemented, and that's not as easy as just saying it will be done. I'm looking for a clip on here. And I don't know that I have it where I think I do.
And look where you don't think it should be, and there it will be.
There it will be. Yes, it would probably be that way. I'm trying to find something here that will let us take a short break from... I talked for an hour solid on there. Well, I did have a couple little clips. Oh, you look at me... Wait a second. Time out. You got to explain that look, because they couldn't see it. I saw it. You just looked at me like, you talk for an hour?
And that's a big deal. Why?
Yeah, like you had a hard time doing that?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
From the man that's... Well, no, I can't say never quiet, because when it's just you and I, you never speak.
Well,
from someone that always has something to say.
Something that always has something to say. Well, let's just play a song from a group called Acapella, and oh, hold on. I think something just arrived to assist me with my problem. Isn't it nice when things just suddenly appear?
It's amazing how it's a miracle like that.
Does that ever happen to you?
No.
Nothing ever just magically appears?
No.
I don't know. We got a pretty good blessing last month that just appeared out of nowhere.
Yeah, I guess we did.
We sure wasn't expecting it.
No, we weren't.
And God provided in a way that we'd have never guessed in a million years.
Never. But that's how he works. That's how he rolls.
And, well, this just fell in my lap. And now that it fell in my lap, I find where I had it before, because it puts it in the exact same place. And I would have never in a million years thought to look there, so...
I told you, look where you didn't think it would be, and there it shall be.
I should listen to you more often, shouldn't I?
Wouldn't that be nice? Hello? Have I not told you that for the last 2.5 years? Hello?
Speaking of 2.5 years, we have something important coming up soon.
We do have. Well, it's important to me. I don't know how you feel.
I said we have something important. Our 2-year anniversary is coming up. July the 7th, 7/7/14 was our day.
And see, we did it that way so you could remember when it was. As long as you can count, you can remember when it is.
7 and 7 equals 14.
I know you have to take your shoes and socks off in order to get that high. But
what happens when I get Alzheimer's and I forget that it
then
7
we celebrate multiple times
a day?
every month.
Kind of like you asking when you got back to the room multiple times.
Keep it up, funny pants.
Okay, how about a song from the Rubies called Breathtakingly Beautiful?
I wanna see you ring out like a bell. Come alive and get out of your shell. You're not meant to be put on a shelf. That drum that's beating in your chest doesn't beat like anybody else. Stand out, play loud, and be yourself. Be bold, be brave. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. You are a story with a heartbeat, extraordinary, irreplaceable, true original. Anything but cliché, perfect in your own way, unmistakably, breathtakingly beautiful. There will never be another you. Be proud and do that thing you do. Paint a smile on your heart like a tattoo. You were born to blaze, there is no doubt. Late for stepping up and sneaking out. Be the noise with your voice and make your sound. You are a story with a heartbeat, extraordinary, irreplaceable, true original. Anything but cliché, perfect in your own way, unmistakably, breathtakingly beautiful. No, there's no hiding, there's no denying, unmistakably, breathtakingly beautiful. No, there's no hiding, there's no denying, unmistakably, breathtakingly beautiful. You are a story with a heartbeat, extraordinary, irreplaceable, true original. Anything but cliché, perfect in your own way, unmistakably, breathtakingly beautiful. Anything but cliché, perfect in your own way, unmistakably, breathtakingly beautiful.
And that was the Rubies, and they are a part of the I Shine group. And last week we had Brad Mathias on the show, and Brad is his company owns the iShine group, so to speak. It's more than just a group, as in a singing group. It's a youth ministry, and different people have made up the Rubies through the years. They sing Christian music, and I believe the 3 girls that are in this are ages 14 and 17, and I think there's 2 14-year-olds and a 17-year-old, but I could be wrong on that. But I think I'm right.
Well, they sounded more mature than that.
Breathtakingly beautiful. He talked a lot about him on the interview last week. You can go back. Let's see what the name of that podcast was real quick. That was the EU referendum and an interview with Brad Mathias, June 23rd. We talked with him. Probably half of that was he was one of the people that was in the Christian leaders meeting with Donald Trump that took place earlier, and we talked about that. Then we talked about iShine and the Rubies and the trip that they're going on soon. And Trevor's done a good job with putting up on his site, trevordecker.com, things about the Rubies. And Trevor's been doing some awesome work, and he's been getting some recognition from some outsiders. I'm proud of some of the things he's got going on.
Trevor is awesome at what he does.
That's all I can say is I'm just proud of the fact that his site is doing so well and getting some recognition. And
well, Trevor helps you out a ton, which makes the world a difference, and he will never ever know how much that's appreciated.
Well, a ton is literally a ton.
And that's probably an understatement.
Yeah, and it probably is an understatement.
So everybody needs to go check out trevordecker.com. Like his page, because he has wonderful information he puts out. He's just all around a good guy.
And Trevor, I want you to know that I didn't prompt that.
That was all unsolicited.
That was unsolicited from Team Amy.
Trevor and I are Team Amy.
Oh.
Trevor started Team Amy.
Huh.
We're going to eventually work you completely out. It'll be the Amy Boston podcast.
I'm thinking that probably would never happen, not because you're not able, but because you would have no desire to have the Amy Boston podcast.
That's probably very true.
Now, capability-wise, you're more than capable of doing that.
No, not at all. We would have a select number of topics.
Well, there was some breaking news that happened today, and unfortunately, it looks like ISIS has attacked again. Istanbul, Turkey. Nearly 50 are dead, 60 injured in terror attack in Istanbul airport. The article says close to 50 people were killed and dozens more were injured when 3 suicide bombers attacked Istanbul's main international airport Tuesday night. The Associated Press, quoting an anonymous Turkish official, reported that nearly 50 people were dead in the blasts. Turkey's state-run news agency reported that around 60 people were injured, 6 of them seriously. A Turkish official told Reuters that the vast majority of victims were Turkish, but some foreigners were also affected. No immediate claim of responsibility, but the same senior Turkish official told AP that initial indications suggested the Islamic State terror group were behind the attack. According to Reuters, a police source also told the news agency ISIS is behind the attack. There was no immediate formal confirmation from the Turkish government.
Imagine that. Filthy scumbags.
The attack occurred one day before the 2-year anniversary of ISIS declaring a caliphate across large patches of Iraq and Syria, led by Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi.
Say that again?
I said it right the first time, so
Yes,
I don't need to repeat myself.
Well, all right.
Besides, it sounded good,
Yes.
whether it was right or not.
Whatever you say.
Initial reports indicated that there had been 2 suicide bombers, at least one of whom attacked the airport's international terminal. But now they believe there was 3 attackers because 3 explosions had been heard. They were wearing suicide vests, I believe. They are now all called Ahmed.
And if you look way over there, you can find a part. And if you look way over there, you can find a part.
And I guess we shouldn't make light of such a horrific thing, but it's just, I'm tired of having to report about this stuff.
Right. And why can't the cowards, if they want to wear a suicide jacket, wear it and walk out in the middle of a field where there's nothing else?
Well, that's the
I know their point is not to do that, but they're just cowards.
They are. And this takes us back to the presidential election as well. We've got one camp that thinks guns are bad, that thinks Muslims are good, and that they're going to put together a group to check on this situation whenever they get into power. And then we've got another group that is saying guns are good, Muslims are mostly bad, and when bad guys do this kind of thing, there will be repercussions. So, I'll let you figure out who says what, and see how you think. But I will tell you that in the anything legal to keep Hillary from the White House line, they finally put out the report. They've had the Benghazi committee investigating that for a long, long time now. And they finally released the main report today. The Democrats put their own report out a couple of days ago. Well, probably yesterday, I guess. They don't work Sundays. That was tongue in cheek.
Yes.
And so, this report and this investigation has been a huge thorn in the side of Hillary Clinton.
Gee, I feel bad about that.
I was going to say, I feel sorry for her that she had to have a thorn in her side.
Yeah, exactly.
But Hillary claimed Tuesday that the final report issued by the House Republican investigation into the deadly September the 11th, 2012 Benghazi terror attack, in which Clinton is accused of knowingly misleading the American public, had found nothing, and it was time to move on.
Oh, well, of course it's time to move on. She wants to slide that all under the rug.
What's it matter now?
Well, yeah. It's over. It's done with. Who cares? Move on. Got news for you, Hillary.
What it matters now. See, I wish she would say that now.
Oh boy.
Boy, this would. See,
We would not be able to peel you off the ceiling if she said that now.
Well, it would be perfect because the response could be, well, what matters now is that you want to be the commander-in-chief of the United States. And how you reacted in Benghazi seems to be how you would react if that happened again.
Exactly.
And seeing as how we have to report, well, our show's weekly or twice a week, and almost every show we have to report about a new terrorist attack somewhere.
Right.
That means she would have to matter a whole lot. Can you imagine if terrorists had done some of the things that they've done in America? Well, no, I can't imagine. I was going to say when Ronald Reagan was president, because they knew better.
Absolutely.
He would have put a missile so far up al-Baghdadi's hind end that his great-great-grandchildren that he don't even have
would go boom.
Would blow up. Seriously. I mean, did we have... We had attacks. They always come with repercussions.
Absolutely. There was always a solution to it.
Well, there's a solution now. Gun control.
Yeah, well, of course. Absolutely.
Every terrorist attack has a solution.
And every terrorist attack, every attack period has the same solution, and it's always gun control.
Yeah, that's because the bad guys, they obey laws.
Well, absolutely they do. You know, I think if they're going to make guns illegal and that will keep them out of the hands of every bad guy from now till the end of time, then let's make heroin and crack and meth, let's make all that illegal too.
Ding, ding, ding.
Exactly. Hello.
It's already illegal, dear.
Well, how can that be? All the bad guys have it. How can that be?
Well, let's get back to Miss Move On. The report released Tuesday morning pointedly blamed a rusty bureaucratic process for the Obama administration's slow-moving response the night of the attack. The report said that despite orders from President Obama and then Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta to deploy assets in response to the attack on the compound to aid Ambassador Stevens, his staff, and security personnel, the first military force did not do so until more than 13 hours after the attack started. 13 hours.
How do you think that makes those families feel? That she wants to just move on. And then that report comes
I'm not
out.
sure if it's going to be in this article or not, but I heard today that one of the things that was going on in that 13 hours was the State Department and the Department of Defense was arguing about whether or not they should be wearing uniforms or not.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Whether or not they should be wearing uniforms.
Yeah,
We got people
that was the
dying.
argument.
We've got our ambassador being dragged across the streets of Benghazi, being defiled in many different ways that are unspeakable. And we've got people arguing about whether or not they should be wearing uniforms or not.
Well, we got to look professional. How ridiculous was that?
Here. Whatever was fastest. If they were in uniform, send them in uniform. If they weren't in uniform, don't worry about it.
If they were in their jammies, send them in their jammies.
13 hours. Would Hillary leave our men and women in the armed forces with uncertainty for 13 hours?
Obviously she did.
They say history repeats itself. All we have to go by is history. History, and sometimes with her it's even what she says, that Muslims are mostly good people.
Yeah. Wow.
Nonetheless, Clinton and her allies worked to sweep aside the committee's damning 800-page report, attempting to cast the investigation as nothing more than a political exercise. Oh.
Haven't.
See, let's get ready. You may have to peel me off the ceiling. I'm going to read a quote.
Oh, my goodness.
Hillary said, "I understand that after more than 2 years and $7 million spent by the Benghazi Committee out of taxpayer funds, it had to today report it found nothing to contradict prior findings." No, that's not what they found. They found that you are inadequate, that the Obama administration failed miserably, of which you were a part of, at one of his senior officials being Secretary of State. That's what they found. And, of course, the White House had to get in a dig, too. This is what the left is so adept at doing. Taking something, twisting it all around to making it opposite, and then feel sorry for us.
Well, of course.
There's only one remaining question, and it's simply this. Is the Republican National Committee going to disclose the in-kind contribution that they have received from House Republicans today? He said, claiming the investigation was meant to tear down Secretary Clinton's poll numbers. Even if that was the case, so what?
Right.
She wants to be the commander-in-chief of our military. She wants to be the one that gets the call at 3 o'clock in the morning when something's going on in the world. I guess she'll put them on hold for 13 hours.
Right. She'll get to him when she gets to him.
Here, I got my phone in my hand. Where's the hold button? Mute. Boop. And then a recording plays that says, "The president will be back to you in 13 hours. And it'll keep every few minutes. You have 12 hours, 36 minutes remaining until the president will get back with you.
Crazy.
Trey Gowdy, who led the commission, the investigative committee, insisted the work was not political. Read the report, he continued to say. If you can read this report in less time than our fellow citizens were taking fire and fighting for their lives on the rooftops and in the streets of Benghazi, he said in a written statement. The Republicans said the report demonstrates a politically motivated cover-up by Clinton and the Obama administration. Trump weighed in later on Twitter. Benghazi is just another Hillary Clinton failure. It never seems to work the way it's supposed to with Clinton. Clinton and her campaign dismissed the document outright. The Republicans on the House Benghazi Committee are finishing their work in the same partisan fashion that we've seen from them since the beginning, Clinton spokesman said. In refusing to issue its report on the bipartisan basis, the committee is breaking from the precedent set by other congressional inquiries into the Benghazi attacks. Never mind that this whole procedure brought out the fact that Hillary knew from the very beginning that this was a radical Islamic terrorist attack.
Right.
And publicly put out that it was because of a YouTube video. Now, I know that sounds just like what's the big deal kind of things. You know, we're talking about a YouTube video, and we're talking about a major conflict in America. And there were times when YouTube videos did cause a big stir. You know, you can't say boo to Muhammad, or all the jihadis say boo-hoo. And
Well, you've offended them.
well, the deal is, she lied and she covered up to the American people.
Absolutely.
So if we look at her track record, it's lying and covering up things to the American people. I don't have to sit here and just list thing after thing after thing where that's the actual case.
Right.
Lies and cover-ups. But it's a known pattern with her. And I think how she has the audacity to even run for president of the United States is beyond comprehension to me.
I agree.
And you add to that the fact that people support her.
And think she's great.
I just don't get that she even has the testicular fortitude to even run. And I say that meaning what I say. The report faulted the Obama administration for a range of missteps before, during, and after the attack that led to the deaths of Ambassador Stevens, Foreign Service Officer Sean Smith, and former Navy SEALs Ty Woods and Glenn Darty. The report said one anti-terrorism security team known as the FAST Unit sat waiting for 3 hours in Rota, Spain, as Marines changed in and out of their uniforms 4 times. 4 times. And even debated whether they should carry personal weapons, according to one witness. Altogether, the report said it would take nearly 18 hours for that team to move. You know, Spain is just across the Mediterranean from Libya. And it sounds like a long way, but with military flight vehicles, it's not 13 hours. It's not 18 hours.
Right.
You know, Hillary has wanted to be president since probably before Bill was president.
Oh, so she's been president twice.
She's already had 2 terms?
Yeah.
Well, that's...
She screwed that up.
very badly. And if she wasn't so into herself, she would have the decency to not run. There is nothing about her presidential, in my estimation.
Oh, good Lord, no.
She seems to be more of a gangster boss type person to me. Well, seriously, how many people have died
Absolutely.
associated with the Clinton name? Their foundation. How many times have we heard about illegal contributions? How many times does she have to be investigated by the FBI, which is still going on, by the way? All of these things, and she still has the audacity to want to be the president of the United States.
Yep.
And people are so stupid that they support her.
It's ridiculous.
There's dead air for a couple of reasons, and when I get frustrated, there's dead air because I can't get out the words that I want to say. I just get so infuriated. See, we're on the Benghazi topic, and I said from the very beginning that we would never let Benghazi go until the proper people are held accountable. And this report doesn't hold them accountable. This is just a report.
Right.
There's no repercussions to this. The repercussions need to be that she doesn't get elected. That needs to be the first one. She needs to end up behind bars.
Oh, Lord, yes.
For numerous reasons. And it makes you just wonder what happens between now and November if the Trump movement goes insanely crazy. And by insanely crazy, I mean picking up momentum, not doing stupid stuff. What will King Obama do if it's apparent that Trump is going to whip his little sister? Do you think that Obama has in him to suspend elections? I mean, he does all kind of stuff on executive order. And even when the Supreme Court ruled against him on immigration last week or the week before, he said he was still going to basically do what he wanted.
And that kills me, how he just thinks he can do what he pleases.
So will he let elections go to keep Trump from getting elected?
You know, I wouldn't put it past him.
The report also showed during a White House meeting convened roughly 3 hours into the attack, much of the conversation focused on the video. That wasn't the reason. The forces that came to evacuate State Department and CIA officers that night were not fellow Americans, but a secret unit of former military officers from the Gaddafi regime, which the Obama administration had helped overthrow. Meaning the bad guys helped us. The ones that Obama thought were the bad guys, they come and helped us. Security deficiencies plagued the Benghazi mission compound in the lead up to September of 2012. Well, that's a big fat duh. Panetta told the committee an intelligence failure occurred, while former CIA Deputy Director Michael Morrell has acknowledged an intelligence failure. Well, there's two intelligence failures. One in the military intelligence they gathered, and two, the intelligence of the people that were... See, here's the deal. The bottom line comes down to everybody underneath them may have failed. I'm not saying they did, but the way life is the person at the top, they get all the glory, but if that's the case, then they should get all of the crap when it comes down to screwing up.
Absolutely.
And the thing with the left is they always want to blame everybody but the person that needs to be blamed. There's a reason for this. There's a reason for that. You know, we had to decide what uniforms to wear. Are you kidding? I couldn't make this stuff up. I could not sit down and write while we had people dying in Benghazi that the Defense Department and the State Department were arguing over whether or not we should wear uniforms. and that a fast action strike unit changed 4 times. Changed uniforms 4 times. I couldn't make that up. I'm not that smart. I'm not that creative. I couldn't do it. Well, strangely enough, PureFlix, I know this sounds, where are you going with this, Ed?
Yeah, no kidding.
PureFlix will be releasing a movie that is called Hillary Clinton's America.
Oh, my.
And here is an early trailer from the movie Hillary Clinton's America.
Who are these Democrats?
It is my judgment that Dinesh D'Souza was sentenced on Tuesday to spend 8 months in a confinement center.
It all began when the Obama administration tried to shut me up.
Gang's all about stealing, man.
What did I learn? All crime is about stealing. The big criminals are still at large.
Didn't see any reason to keep them.
It's time to go behind the curtain and discover the soul of the Democratic Party.
The Democrats support slavery. Judgments of the Lord are true and righteous altogether.
This Civil Rights Act will allow colored men to sit at the same table beside the white guest.
Crime has always been swept under the rug.
To cover the tracks of the Democratic Party.
We gotta give them a little something.
Plantation politics.
The Democrats went from slavery to enslavement.
Corrupt big city bosses, that's how you get corrupt unions.
What does progressive actually mean?
Social engineering and social control.
I'm Margaret Singer.
The opening video in the Democratic Convention in 2012, government is the one thing we all belong to.
What are these Democrats hiding?
This is about buying and selling influence by foreign oligarchs and foreign governments. When you follow the money, there are very, very few coincidences.
What if the goal of the Democratic Party is to steal the most valuable thing the world has ever produced? What if their plan is to steal America? Who will stop them now?
Wow. PureFlix is going out on a limb here.
Yes, they are.
Now, Trevor's got up on his site. It's actually called Hillary's America, The Secret History of the Democratic Party, is the official title. It's a new documentary film looking at the history of the Democratic Party. The film is produced by Dinesh D'Souza, who will examine the party's forgotten history, including its roots in slavery and more. Go to trevordecker.com, scroll down till you find new documentary Hillary's America in theaters July 22nd. He has a link that I'm going to go ahead and click on that's called Hillary's America, themovie.com, where you can get a lot more information. And I have to think that Hillary probably is not too happy that is releasing in July when the elections are in November.
Probably she's not.
And it also, going back to PureFlix and going out on a limb, they're not a political organization. They're a Christian entertainment company. And I would guess that they got a lot of advice that said, don't put that film out. That's just me guessing. I have no idea. I don't have any behind-the-scenes knowledge or any of those things, but I'm guessing that there were people who would say that's not a good idea. I've had people tell me that speaking up against Democrats so hard is not a good idea as a pastor because it alienates a certain percentage of the population. I've had a Christian pastor tell me that that's why they don't talk about politics, is that it alienates. And I actually understand that. So
But you can't sweep it under the rug either.
that's the thing.
It's like not talking on abortion.
If you're quiet, it'll just go away. That's what got America into the mess that we're in. If you just don't talk about it, it'll all go away and be okay.
Wow.
I wish we didn't ever talk about Republicans and Democrats, because the two-party system has us in a huge bind the way we are now. I don't know what the solution is to having numerous parties, no parties. Everybody's just an individual. But I'm sure that the film is not endorsing anybody. They would probably say that the film is just a historical look.
Educational.
Right. But I have a feeling that the Democrats aren't going to like this education.
Yeah, probably not.
Because they don't like facts, and people don't realize the facts that the Democrat Party was so wrapped up into slavery that it was pathetic. They think that was all the rich Republicans, you know, that those big horrible business people. That's not true, and they're going to expose that with facts. And so I'm proud of PureFlix for putting out a documentary of facts.
Right.
You know, if you produce facts and that bothers somebody, then that's their problem. When you know that it's fact. Now,
right.
If it's conjecture, if it's opinion, those things, that's a different story. That's a different story completely. But when you present something as facts and you have the documentation to back it up, just like my sermon Sunday, that the founders were mostly Christians, I didn't just say that, just didn't take somebody's word for it. I read quotes from the actual founding fathers themselves. How else better to find something out than take the words of the people themselves?
Absolutely.
So I'm sure that a lot of people will be surprised with the facts that Democrats were big time into the slavery movement and that the Republicans fought against slavery. And again, why can't we be individuals? And I'll lightheartedly do this. I've got friends who are Cubs fans, and I'm a Cardinals fan. And Cardinals fans hate the Cubs, Cubs fans hate the Cardinals. But I don't hate my friend Bob Jordan because he's a Cubs fan. I'm going to tease him and make fun of him because his team's lost for over 100 years.
Snap.
Well, it's the truth. It's the truth.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean we can't be friends just because he supports a loser. And see, all my Cub fan friends out there are saying, yeah, but what about this year? Okay. You guys are 10 games ahead of the Cardinals. That's the fact.
Cardinals felt bad for him. Is that what you're going
No,
to say? No,
I'm not going to say. Hey, I dish out the crap. I got to take it when it comes back my way.
Ooh, that's a good thing.
So, but why can't politics be like that? He's my friend. We disagree on a topic, Cardinals and Cubs, but we're still friends. Why does everything have to be one side versus the other side, and if you're not my side, I hate your guts.
I don't know. Good question.
I don't know where used to, and earlier in our life, things were this way more so, that in Washington, D.C., Democrats and Republicans could disagree, but they would come together when they needed to.
Right.
Even on September the 11th, 2001, when we were attacked on the steps of the Capitol building, Republicans and Democrats alike went out and sang "God Bless America." I bet you today, if September the 11th, 2001 happened again, never happened.
No, I bet it wouldn't either.
And things were already getting bad in 2001, but they've gone so far downhill.
Oh, goodness, yeah.
There is no bipartisanship. It's a miracle when, well, it's almost a miracle that anything passes, because you've got a Republican Senate that doesn't have a supermajority, meaning that it takes 60 votes to win a vote instead of 51 votes, one more than 50%. So the Democrats can block pretty much anything in the Senate. Something has to pass the House and the Senate before it goes to the president's desk. The House is majority Republican, so the Republicans have their way there pretty much, but then it goes to the Senate that is majority Republican but not super majority Republican. See, we're just all messed up.
Yes, we are all messed up.
How do you spell that? Up. You know, as in Ahmed, A-C, phlegm.
You can't tell
That's
that we're
F.
like Jeff Dunham, can you?
No, that's F-U-P is how you spell that.
Oh, my goodness. I love you.
Well, let's end the show with a story that is a feel-good story. I know this is up on the front page of edboston.com in our news, Christian news area. I know Trevor has it up on his site. Tim Tebow was in the news, and I think you saw the headline.
I did.
And asked me if I knew anything about it. I love Tim Tebow, by the way. He has taken more garbage for being a Christian than most ministers have taken for being a Christian. Heart attack victim regains pulse after Tim Tebow begins praying. An elderly man who lost consciousness during a flight this weekend and was all but taken for dead regained his pulse and consciousness after Tim Tebow reportedly walked down the aisle and prayed with the entire section of the plane and the gentleman's family. The passenger later died at the hospital. So it's a feel-good story, but it doesn't have a happy ending.
Well, yeah, but God bless him. You know, he lived long enough to get off that airplane.
He lived long enough that he might have known that Tim Tebow, a famous football player, prayed for me. But think of the testimony. Well, we're talking about it right now, so there's the testimony. But the testimony that is to that man's family and everybody that was on that airplane, that they saw that man was almost dead, and he regained pulse, and consciousness. Tebow, who helped the family get off the plane, picked up their luggage and went with them to the hospital. He waited with them until they got the news that the man had passed away. The man in his 60s was traveling with his wife and her friend. Passenger Richard Gotti wrote about the incident on Facebook, saying, "I watched strangers from all over the world and every ethnicity come to the help of this man for over an hour. Then all of a sudden I observed a guy walking down the aisle. That guy was Tim Tebow." Tim Tebow is not afraid
Good for him.
of his faith.
Good for him. Bless his heart.
And that just kind of goes with my sermon headline again. I am not ashamed of the gospel. I really would like it if you went to our Spreaker account. You can go to edboston.com and link to it and listen to that sermon. I'm not ashamed of the gospel. There are certain sermons that I just like better than others, and you can usually tell in the way I preach it. I just have passion about that. And stories like this with Tim Tebow, we started off with something that gives us hope when we talked about the miracle and the almost supernatural intervention of the Brexit vote, given up for dead, same as this man was given up for dead, and it came back and won. This man was revived. He did later die, but you see where I'm going? We started with something, and we're end with something of hope. There's hope in Jesus Christ, and that's what our country needs to hear, and that's what I preached about, and I am not ashamed of the gospel. I think it's time to get something to drink, as in Sprite. I didn't make it sound like it's time to hit the bar or anything. See, when I say get something to drink, I'm never referring to alcoholic beverages, but I understand that might have sounded that way. Time to hit the bottle, babe.
Time to hit the bottle.
Bottle of Sprite. We're cans. Pop
So
open.
was that a hint for me to get up and go get you one?
No, that's a hint that we are finishing the show and we can go together and get our Sprite.
Well, isn't that great?
So thank you for being with us. Thank you for Trevor and all the hard work he does. And get over to trevordecker.com. It's got some great stuff up right now. Trevor's doing some of the best work on his site that I've ever seen him do, and he's been good at it for a long time. So that says a lot. So we're thanking Trevor. Thank you, Amy, for sitting here right here beside me and being my support.
Oh, no problem.
It's always so much easier when you're here by my side.
I don't do a whole lot.
Well, you do way more than you think you do. And so for Ed and all of us, we want you to go out and do the right thing. I got a short song here encouraging the church. Get right, church.
Get right, church, and let's go home. Come on, get right, church, and let's go home. Come on, get right, church. Get right, church. Come on and get right, church, and let's go home. You know that I'm going home on the morning train. I'm going home on the morning train. I'm going home. I'm going home. You know that I'm going home on the morning train, because that evening train might be too late. That evening train might be too late. You know, the evening train, that evening train. You know that that evening train might be too late. Everything'll be alright for backpack train. Gotta get the load. Come on in backpack train. Gotta get the load. Come on in backpack train. Backpack train. Backpack train. Gotta get the load. Everybody, get right, church, and let's go home. Get right, church. Come on and get right, church. If you wanna go home, get right, hey, get right, church. Get right, church, and let's go home. Get right, oh, and let's go home. Get right, church. Come on and get right, church. If you wanna go home, if you wanna go home with Jesus, get right, church, and let's go. Get right, you wanna go home? Get right, yeah. Oh, get right, church, and let's go home.